We're going to take a look at a program where the user is going to enter the principal amount, rate of interest, and the period in which the compound interest is going to be calculated. So let us say the user says, I want interest to be calculated at the end of each year, but I'm going to keep the FD or the amount for 3 years. So let us say I take the amount 1000. If I just keep it for 1 year, I'm going to just get an interest of 100. So it's going to be 1100, assuming rate of interest is 10%. Now let us say I decide to keep it for 3 years. So first year it becomes 1100. Now the new interest is going to be calculated on the 1100. So at the end of 2 years it will be a little more than 1200. If I keep it for 3 years it will be a little more than 1300, because the compound interest is going to be calculated not on 1000, it's going to be calculated on 1200, which was the amount at the end of the previous year. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to ask the user to enter the principal, time and rate of interest. So you can see the formula for calculating the compound interest here. Amount is principal multiplied by 1 plus r upon 100 into t. So what I am required to calculate here is not only what was the final amount of compound interest, what was the total amount after adding the compound interest to the original principal amount. So what I have done here is I have declared a variable called as float, and PRIAMT stands for the principal amount. Net amount is the final amount after adding the compound interest. Rate is the rate of interest you decide to enter. CI is the final compound interest which has been calculated after using this particular program. Time is the number of years you want to keep it. And I'm telling you why we are going to use year will be clear in a very short while. So what we shall do is I shall first go ahead and type the logic, and then I'll try to explain. So here what I have done is I have asked in the lines here, I have asked the user to enter the principal amount, the rate of interest, ROI stands for rate of interest, and time. Once user enters that, I am going to take the variable year and give it the value 1. Then what I am going to do is I am going to initialize net amount is equal to principal amount. Once the user initializes net amount is equal to principal amount, then for every year, in order to calculate the interest, I am going to use a while loop. How long is this while loop going to run? As long as the number of years is less than the or equal to the time entered by the user. So if the user enters 3, this loop will run 3 times, because at the end of each year I want to calculate the compound interest. So net amount is equal to net amount multiplied by 1 plus, what is that, rate of interest, RATE upon 100.0. I'm making this 100.0 because rate I have given as integer. That's why if you want the division to happen as floating point or real number, you need to ensure that rate is automatically upgraded to a float, because bottom denominator happens to be 100.0. So what I'm going to do here is after I calculate the interest for 1 year, I'm going to increase year by 1. So this way I calculate the interest for each year. So now once I calculate the interest for each year, first step I'm going to do here is I'm going to print the net amount here. So net amount is going to come through this calculation. Now if I have to print the compound interest is going to be equal to net amount, is going to be equal to net amount minus principal amount. So this is your compound interest. So this is going to be your compound interest, and this is going to be your net amount. Now finally I have finished typing the program, because I had already pre-typed this get ch and all this stuff, so that we don't waste time explaining non-essential stuff. So what I'm going to do here is, let me first compile it, let me run it, and then keep on explaining it to you. Okay, all right, so far so good. So once it compiles, let me proceed with the explanation. What I am doing here is I have declared variables principal amount, net amount to be calculated, what is the rate of interest user proposes, and the compound interest you are going to earn at the end of 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, whatever period you decide. This is the time. Time is the number of years the user wants the compound interest to be calculated. Year is going to be used to keep track of how many years you have to calculate the compound interest. I'm going to use year just like I use the variable I in other programs to see that year is less than or equal to time. So as long as year is less than or equal to time, I am going to calculate the compound interest. I am asking the user enter the principal amount, rate of interest and time. So once I enter this, I am initializing year is 1, net amount is equal to principal amount. In order to calculate for the first year, let us say amount is 1000 and time or year I have entered is only 1. So net amount is going to be 1000 into 1 plus, let's say rate of interest is 10%, 10 upon 100. So it is going to be 1000 plus 1000 into 0.01. So it is going to be 1100 rupees. Year is going to be equal to 2. And if I print out compound interest, it will print compound interest as 100 rupees, net amount as 1100 rupees. Now, if I run it for multiple years, it will take the previous year's net amount and calculate the compound interest for that particular thing. So what we'll do is, let me try to run this particular program and explain. Let me enter 1000, rate of interest let's say is 10% and time is 1 year. So since I am calculating compound interest only for 1 year, it should give me 1100 as the net amount and it should give me compound interest as 100. So perfect, it's doing what we expect. Now what I am going to do is, let us say I run it again. Okay, this time let us say I take 1000 rupees, I run it for 3 years. Sorry, the rate of interest is 10% and the time I give it is for 3 years. Now at the end of first year it will be 1100, end of second year it will be little more than 1200, end of third year it will be little more than 1300. Why is it going to be more than 1200 at the end of the second year? The reason being, the compound interest is calculated on the total amount at the end of the previous year. So at the end of first year we got 1100. So when you calculate 11% on, when you calculate 10% on 1100, you are going to get little more than 1200, something like 1210, 1215 like that, 1212, something like that, 1211, 1212 or 1210 maybe to be precise. And then 1210, if you calculate the interest at the end of the third year, that is going to come something like 1230, 31 approximately. So let's see what happens. So here you see, as I said, net amount happens to be 1331. So we got 331 as the compound interest at the end of 3 years and the compound interest amount was 331 rupees. So you can play around this program by entering different values and you should get a better understanding of how it works. The key is you should initialize year to 1, copy the value of principal amount to net amount, and in this particular loop, for at the end of each year, calculate the net amount, and at the next year take that old net amount and calculate the compound interest or interest on the old net amount. This way you are going to get the correct compound interest to be calculated.